So it's an electrical business called Mr. Electric. It's a Neighborly brand. So talked about Neighborly a bunch. If you don't know about them, Google Neighborly, but huge player in the home services space. But Mr. Electric, they do both residential and I think they do light commercial, electrical stuff. So installations, repairs, safety inspections, things like that. They have about 190 franchise units throughout the US. So pretty well established, but still, a lot of territory open, which is nice. And so the total investment for this one's between 152 and 314. I mean, I've heard it's 250 or less, even closer to 200 for this. But I imagine maybe there's a scenario where it can be on the higher end. But this one, you don't need even an office or a warehouse to get started. So you could literally start this out of just your Mr. Electric van, but they want people that are business owners that are going to hire electricians to work for them. So a lot of their owners do not have an electrical license. They don't have background in that in the industry. And so they're going to give you all the tools and the training to be successful. They're going to help train, that first electrician you hire. They'll help with that hiring practice and, who you should look for and the type of person, how you compensate them, everything like that. But I love this business because it's like electricians aren't going anywhere. Like it's actually like in super high demand, especially with like the involvement of technology and people wanting things installed in their house. I mean, it's just always I just don't see it ever being fully replaced by technology in our lifetime. So I think this is one that's very needed service and demand service. Obviously, you're managing somebody that is more technical and has a pretty good license and a higher salary than some of the other trades. But if you can be a true leader, the way I kind of talk about these businesses is like, if you can be a true CEO and manage the high level operations of the business, the marketing, and really be a leader that can build a culture and hire and retain electricians, you can scale this thing and build a really nice business for yourself. And so we've had people buy this franchise going through validation. They've talked to owners that are full time and have gradually went into really pretty passive involvement, because what's nice is like the electrician is going to go out. They're probably going to give the quote, do the work the same day, and collect payment. It's like they're doing a lot of, the sales operating. They're all handling that themselves, and you have one electrician per van. So it's very scalable. You just, as you get a certain level of backlog of customers, you add another van and another electrician. So if you're comfortable managing that kind of technical type of person and you feel like you could handle that, it can be a phenomenal business. And so we can look at the item 19 if you want.
Yeah, real quick before we dive into the numbers, guys, and these are the numbers are quite transparent, so it'll be really good for you to see. What we find is that when people see franchises like this, where it's quite obvious that it's proven, they got 189 almost 190 franchisees. They show average owner does $1 million in sales, which we're about to show you the numbers. A lot of the times the question is like, what's still holding you back from pursuing franchising or just diving into it deeper or getting the intro? It's usually because you still feel like you don't know enough, or are you ready? Or I still need to do more research. And so that's exactly why we created that was smooth, right? That's exactly why we created the Franchise Buyers Academy. And so I just want to show you behind the scenes. I'm not sure if I ever showed you behind the scenes of what we actually have in here in the Franchise Buyers Academy, but it's everything you need to know about buying a franchise and figuring out if it's the right opportunity for you. Not just that, then if you pursue it, what direction should you go and look at? So we cover all of the fundamentals, all the terms that you need to know, right? Is there, right? Franchise terms, business terms, why people are buying, pros and cons, right? So we're real. This is not like a fluff piece to be like, hey, you should buy a franchise. No, we're going to be real with you, go over what are the pros and cons. How do you actually make money? How does that work? What's the sales to investment ratios that I need to know? What's the difference between a service-based business like this and doing a gym and doing a fitness concept or doing a food concept or doing anything that you're signing a lease and you have to do a build out? How does that work in terms of the risk to you, the startup cost, the potential return on investment that you get? I literally break down specific franchise examples. I break down the numbers. I pull up the FDDs. We go over then how you would fund it. And I give examples of how you would structure the funding in those instances. Then all of the mistakes that you need to avoid when buying a franchise, how to narrow it down for you and for you to get to a point of clarity before you even talk with someone like our team or a franchise broker. How do you get to a point where you kind of have an idea of what your skill sets are and what might be good for you? Then we dive into the profit margins of specific franchises, what those percentages look like, and then how that plays into then scaling to becoming a multi-unit franchisee, all the way to then how to start with the end in mind of selling your business. So when you get into it, you can think like, okay, how do I position myself so I can sell for the maximum value? And we talk through that. So for anyone, by the way, all of this is $27. There's over 4 hours of content there. And so the reason we created this is because everyone is asking for, hey, we want more of a more consolidated source of information on how to really go through this process and to figure out, is franchising right for me? If so, how do I make money and what do I need to know? And so I would recommend go check it out, go secure it. It's actually been the most popular offering. It's actually kind of cool. So you can go to franchiseempire.com/FBA. And then once you enter all your info, you'll get immediate access, which is pretty cool. And I think we have like a 30-day money back guarantee on your $27 too. So it's like there's literally no risk there. But anyways, all right. So let's talk through the numbers of this Mr. Electric.
And I'll add one quick thing. You talk about like end game, like selling your business. Obviously, that's best case scenario. Worst case scenario, I talk to people about this. Worst case scenario for a business like this is you own a van, you sell that van and all the equipment to another Mr. Electric owner or some other electrician in your market, and that's it. Like, you don't have a long-term lease you're stuck in. You haven't dumped a few $100,000 into a location that you'll never get value from that. That's the landlord's now. It's like totally different ways. So like even worst case scenario, you fail, which you don't plan in going into it, but people constantly think about it. It's like worst case scenario in a service-based business like this is not as nearly as bad as something else, in my opinion. But anyways, so let's talk about item 19 here. So the average gross sales, let's see. So top 10% is doing 2.8 million. If you go all the way down, 100%, they're averaging about $1 million. And I love how they break it down here in pretty good detail. But if you're top 50%, you're averaging 1.6 million in gross sales, which is pretty strong. And they don't break down net numbers, I don't believe, but I would have my assumptions on what potential net earnings would be, and you could get a better understanding through validation. But this
And it's something we dive into in the Franchise Buyers Academy, which the way the franchise sorry to interrupt, Kevin, but the way that the franchise world works is that you can't make an earnings claim that doesn't exist. So you can't say, hey, you can make, unless it's disclosed in here, we can't say, hey, yeah, franchisees are making 50% profit margins. They're definitely not making 50% profit margins. So I just figured I'd throw out a crazy number just to, but in the Franchise Buyers Academy, this is literally, that's why I have a whole section on profit margins because I pull up different service-based franchises, retail-based franchises that do disclose profit margins. So we're able to talk through it. So you're able to get the base context of then that you then can apply towards, almost most other models as well. So anyways.
I think that's helpful because I really don't think, and I'm not knocking anybody. I just people don't have the experience that we do looking at these businesses, and oftentimes they'll come to us and they'll be like, "Yeah, it's like 40% profit margins," and when they pull up the information they're referencing, it's like that's gross profit. Like that doesn't include the lead, like it's not even including all your overhead. And
Oh,
so
yeah, people don't know what gross profit means.
yeah,
I didn't know what it meant when
yeah,
we looked at our franchise.
yeah. So it's
That's
really
another term that's in the Franchise Buyers Academy, and I explain it, by the way.
so it's important to understand those numbers pretty clearly. Um, anyways, yeah, but I mean, I like Mr. Electric quite a bit. I think it's one of their fastest growing brands in the Neighborly network. I think this one and their HVAC company are the two fastest growing franchises right now.
And we help someone buy a Mr. Electric, right?
Yeah, yeah. One guy in Denver and another in San Diego area.
Yeah, cool. So, guy, I mean, when you look at these numbers, I mean, it's quite transparent, right? And let's give you the full scope. So, you got the worst performing franchisee doing 118 grand, the worst performing, and the highest performing 3.1 million, and the average just over 1.08 million, and even the median is at over a million. So when you look at this, the question that you should be asking yourself is, what's the difference? What's the difference between the franchisees who do a little bit in the middle, top, right? And how do I become one of those? That really is what becomes the the question.
This is I'll shed some light on that. For this particular one, I know there are in the past when they kind of first got in, started in franchising, there were some electricians that bought into this, and I would almost guarantee you the people that are doing 118,000 are solo electricians operating under the Neighborly brand who have just never really scaled their business. They're just and so I do think there are some in that, but they really want people that are more like business savvy and are going to build a team of electricians, not be the actual electrician.
Yeah, and to that point, I had a friend of mine, a close buddy of mine, and this is not a franchise, so I can say these numbers because there's no disclosure rules around this. But he built this company up to like $12 million a year in sales, doing fire and water restoration, and he didn't he didn't know the technical side of the business. Like he obviously had to have like a thorough understanding, but like he wasn't the one out there doing the work. He was just a genius marketer and great at building teams. And so, he had 40, 50 employees and was able to build it up. He had techs. He would hire some of the best general managers and people to run the warehouse and the construction division and the restoration division and all those different things. And eventually, he recently wound up selling the company to a private equity firm. So you may think, I don't want to be I don't want to have a business with a bunch of electricians, but I don't know, maybe you do.
Yeah. So
Anything?
I kind of touched on some of these points. I think all of them really. The only thing I didn't touch on is they do have a corporate call center that handle, they're going to do a lot of marketing for you to generate leads. And then they have that call center that schedules and puts all the leads on your electrician's calendar, which is kind of nice. So
That's really nice. Cool. So if you guys want to see, number one, if Mr. Electric has any availability in your specific territory, or if you just want to see, hey, what other franchises that match my skill sets and my budget are available in my area, then you can do that for free and set up a 15-minute call with the team at franchiseempire.com/check territory.